Chapter 21, A Tale of Three Brothers. They questioned Mr. Lovegood about the Deathly Hollows, and then he said, "You've never heard of Deathly Hollows?" And he's like, Harry's like, "What is a Deathly Hollows?" And he said, "Have you ever heard the story of the three brothers?" And Hermione and Ron have heard of it, and he's like, "Okay, I'll look for a copy somewhere." Hermione says he had it, and she pulled out the children's book that she's been reading. And in this, she explains, well, he had her read the story of the three brothers. There was three brothers, each going across a bridge, and then they got confronted by death because he was hoping they would die um, trying to cross the bridge and die in the river. And they all asked for one thing. Well, he asked if they wanted one thing, and then each of them said one thing. Oldest brother, I believe he said he wanted an elder wand that could be anybody. Second brother wanted a power to bring people back to life. And the third one didn't want anything, but wanted to be like concealed. So he got the invisibility cloak. First one died very quickly after that. So he got the wand. He was boasting about his wand and got his wand stolen and killed. The second one brought back his lost loved one and then got driven mad by the ability not to be able to like actually touch her, but she was like a ghost almost, that she didn't want to be alive. And the third one took off his invisibility cloak when he was ready to pass on and gave his cloak to his son and went off with death. And that was the story. And as they were discussing the story, they each like talked about which one they would want. Harry said he wanted the stone. Ron said he would want the wand, and then Hermione said she would have wanted the cloak. And then they kind of argued about like why each person wanted what. Harry obviously the stone to bring back people that he's lost. Um, Ron the wand to be all powerful, even though knowing Ron's character, he would boast. Like Hermione was like, "Are you sure you wouldn't like let people know that your wand is all powerful?" And then Hermione the cloak just to conceal herself. And as they were doing that, they were kind of discussing. Harry kind of walked away a little bit, and Mr. Lovegood had gone downstairs to make dinner. He's like, "You guys should stay for dinner. I'm gonna go downstairs." So as Harry's going upstairs, he's kind of snooping around doing what usual Harry does. He sees a portrait upstairs, and it's a portrait of him, Ginny, Neville, Ron, and Hermione. And around it is like chains saying friends, and he felt very touched by this portrait. And this was Luna's a portrait that Luna made. And this then he goes upstairs and notices in Luna's room, it's all dusty and doesn't look like anyone has been there for a long time. And at that moment right there, Harry goes back downstairs. He lets Ron and Hermione know, and Mr. Lovegood comes back with like a tray of food and all that stuff. He says, "Anyone hungry?" And then Harry asks, "Where's Luna?" You can tell that she's not been in her room for a while now. And at this, Mr. Lovegood freezes. And then at the same time, the Quibbler um, prints off and it gets a paper and it shows a picture of Harry, and basically there's a prize on his head as well. The 10 is it 10 galleons or 10,000 galleons, something like that. It's a big prize for Harry, and at this moment they knew that Mr. Lovegood was up to no good, and he explained that the Death Eaters had taken Luna, and he doesn't know where she is, and he had to give up Harry and try to get Harry Potter in any way he could. And so then they realized he'd been keeping them there just to try to stall and wait for the Death Eaters to come. And then they look outside and they see a couple of Death Eaters coming on brooms. And at that moment, Mr. Lovegood tries to, though, stun them, and he misses because Harry dives and knocks Hermione and Ron out the way, and his spell hits the horn that was in his room, and that horn explodes. So the whole room just explodes, and they're covered in rubble and everything. Mr. Lovegood is blown downstairs, and at that moment, Harry flies into the wall, and then Hermione comes out. She's covered in white dust and just tells him to be quiet. And they hear Death Eaters talking downstairs and like hitting Mr. Lovegood with spells, saying that you should have called this only if you actually had Harry Potter and not just news of Harry Potter. So I looks like he'd been calling them for several different reasons, maybe false alarms just to see if he can get Luna back. Um, and so they were just hitting him with spells. And at that moment, so there was loud downstairs. So Harry and Hermione were using that noise to try to dig Ron out, and Ron was completely like covered in rubble, so he was took the longest to get out. And Mr. Lovegood kept saying Harry Potter's upstairs, Harry Potter's upstairs, and they didn't believe him. So they said, "You go upstairs and get him." And then, so he's trying to get through the rubble and everything. And Hermione asks Harry, "Do you trust me?" And Harry obviously nods. And then they cover Ron in the invisibility cloak. And at the moment that Mr. Lovegood finally gets upstairs, Harry hits him with the spell and basically crashes the floor, so everything falls down to the next floor on top of the Death Eaters. And at that moment, they use that to escape. Um, wow. Um, Great chapter. And also the fact that the Deathly Hollows being like a myth, even though they didn't really think about it, the fact that Harry's cloak, like this whole time, Harry's cloak like kind of describes the cloak that is used by the third brother in the story. And also Hermione had asked like the certain family whose grave was at Godric's Hollow. There was three brothers in that family, so that kind of makes the story possibly real, because Hermione obviously said like the story's a bunch of rubbish, and because she's not really open-minded to things, and even Mr. Lovegood says you should open your mind a little bit to things, but that just made that connection a little more real. And so yeah, Harry's cloak, the Elder Wand, who probably could have been different names throughout history. They have been hearing about wands that have power. Harry thought of his own wand, and that maybe his own wand like could have its own powers as well. And the stone, maybe they thought like that was like an inverse of the Philosopher's Stone, like just a different version of it. So we shall see where they go next with this information.